and the animals in the region. But could you address whether there's been any research done into contamination of areas that have been on the proximity of nuclear sites in terms of agriculture?
There is some research, and Paul can probably add to this. I know that Palisades has done a real scant job of looking at surrounding biota locally on the land or in the lake. But what I would like to mention, just briefly, is that the state of Michigan, as part of these emergency evacuation procedures, has a plan for what to do if there's a major accident at Palisades or Cook. And that really is to quarantine the agricultural food supply of the entire affected area, which means loss of that.
Well, I think I would like to comment on the issue of security. For example, right now it's known that the original Al-Qaeda plan was to hijack 10 aircraft and direct 2 of those aircraft into nuclear power stations in the United States. Indian Point in 25 miles from New York City was likely one of the targets. Perhaps 3 Mile Island was another. But in fact, Al-Qaeda abandoned the 10 aircraft plan and downsized it to 4. But what's evident now, according to the 9/11 Commission, is that nuclear power stations are in fact on the target list. What we've seen is that U.S. government documents verify that no U.S. nuclear power plant in the country, including Cook, Palisades, or Fermi, were ever designed or constructed or evaluated for aircraft hazards. Essentially, the risks that were evaluated during the licensing of those nuclear power plants were diminished by the an evaluation that included pilot action, so that the plants were licensed on the probability that a pilot would take action to divert an aircraft away from a nuclear power plant. In fact, we now, as of September 11th, we have the very real risk of a pilot deliberately directing an aircraft into a U.S. nuclear power station that has never been evaluated for explosion or fire. And this is certainly one of the concerns that we've had with regard to the whole licensing process as well, and the relicensing for these plants as well as the new ones, that the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission has deliberately deprived the public of addressing this risk in license extensions or new licensing process by saying that the public is not able to raise these issues. But one of the concerns that's recently come to light right now is that, for example, you can virtually, by going on the internet, anywhere in the world, from any Wi-Fi cafe around the world, you can virtually reconnaissance nuclear power stations through viewing stairwells, pathways, drop-off points, equipment, radioactive waste casks through enhanced high-resolution satellite photography that can put you within 25 yards of a nuclear power plant site. This raises some very real concerns that that these plants can be reconnaissanced, and that you can take data and you can put it into a tabletop exercise, and you can train a team on how to attack a nuclear power station virtually anywhere in the world right now. This is not true of renewable energy resources. We don't face the issue of security risks from wind turbines and solar panels. There is this inherent danger not only of safety but also of security in nuclear power. And this is why we must get off this path as quickly as possible.
So then, could we conclude that it is possible to become nuclear free in this country? It's just that we have such an investment in that it will take time and maybe well beyond our comprehension whether we can ever leave it behind.
No, well, Dr. Makajani with this book, Carbon Free and Nuclear Free, has shown that it's eminently doable. And in fact, it would not require any more of our gross domestic product than we already spend. Like you mentioned, we import foreign oil from all corners of the planet. And nuclear power is hugely expensive. So we could spend the same amount of money and have a renewable energy and energy efficient future and completely phase out fossil fuels and nuclear power. And it's doable. It's just a matter of political will and doing it. And we're at a crossroads. Michigan has tremendous potential to develop wind power, and the question is, will we lock ourselves into another generation or two of disastrous energy policy in all sorts of ways by building a new reactor in Michigan, by running these old ones into the ground at our peril? Or will we finally wake up and join countries like Germany and develop our wind and solar potential? It's the wave of the future.
Well, thank you, Paul Gunter, and thank you, Kevin Camps, and thank you, Beyond Nuclear.